Betting Show. I'm Ben Razzo, but special guest today. I am joined by Jason Roslin. What's up,
What's up?
man?
What's up, Ben? Yeah, I'm happy to come on the show and talk a little bit more than just golf. I know,
Yeah,
most people probably know me for golf, but I enjoy quite a bit of other sports too, and hopefully can hold my own in chatting with you about them today.
yeah, man. We're gonna have fun. So we got, obviously holiday season, but there's a lot going on. We're gonna be jumping around, but yeah, we got some college basketball we're gonna touch on. I'm gonna talk a little bowl games just because I do love the bowl games, and then we're gonna get into some NFL bets. Down to the wire now. I mean, this is closing time for playoffs and whatnot, so we'll get into it. But yeah, man, I'm excited to have you here, and we'll get right into it. So, you want to start with college basketball? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. Let's start with college basketball. So, I've obviously DFS is relatively still new for me. I started about 4 years ago, but prior to that, college basketball was my thing. I'd try and bet on it as much as the online places would allow. Of course, as we're seeing more and more options. But, anyways, yeah, a couple games caught my eye today that I just wanted to bring up with you. And the first one that I wanted to talk about was Baylor and Oregon. Oregon's missing their best player, or at least their leading scorer, their freshman phenom Bol, and I think that's how you pronounce it. And I've watched him, and he's fun to watch. He's 7 feet 2, and he brings a lot to it. But they've actually won a couple of meaningless games their last two, but now they come to Baylor, and at Baylor it's a 2.5 point spread. And I don't know if you've looked at it or not, but it seems like they're almost still pricing Bol there at 2.5 points. Oregon's in the weaker Pac-10. Baylor's in a little bit of a better conference. So, have any takes on that game? My eye was kind of going towards Baylor at this point, especially if the leading star for Oregon doesn't play.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a game that did catch my eye. You mentioned obviously Bol is he's a problem. No, you can't really game plan for that. He
Yep.
can move. If you haven't seen Oregon play, just for that, it's worth checking out. But
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, going to Waco, not an easy spot. They play a zone. It's tough. They pack it in. Dana Altman, great coach for Oregon. Winning on the road, just in general, it's just tough when you're away from home. So yeah, I mean, a couple points. Obviously, it's a pseudo pick 'em. You want to win the foul game at the end, but I think it's going to come down to really is can Oregon get over the top? Can they attack that zone? Because Baylor's pretty long. They've had the Rico Gathers of the world, which all we hear about on Cowboys games is that guy rebound.
Release Rico Gathers, right? Yep.
Unreal. But yeah, man, I think there are some good games for a Friday. I was actually, we were talking a little before the show. There are a couple pretty marquee games, and I do think that's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that actually really interested me, and just want to hear your take on this, I saw that the point total was like 130, which seemed low. And again, I think that's probably due to Bobo being out and the fact that Baylor is just shooting terribly from 3 point over their last couple of games. So that did keep catch my eye because they both do average over 70 points a game. So that was interesting, but I think that might be more of a little bit of a sucker line than I'd like to play. So just wanted to mention that. And do you have a take either way?
Yeah, I mean, I actually see it dropping. Mine, I'm looking at my book. It's 129.5 right now.
Hmm.
Uh, and I honestly kind of lean to the under. I'll be honest. Baylor, the tempo is down. They can't shoot. It's unreal. I saw them
Yeah, it's
earlier
bad.
against Wichita State, and it was just disgraceful. They don't really have the personnel. Obviously, can they get hot? Of course, but I think from Baylor perspective, and it seems like we're both leaning towards them in the game. They want to slow it down. They kind of want to play more methodical. Where I would expect Oregon to try to get up and down to an extent. So if Baylor does kind of pull ahead, I could see a game in the 60s here.
Yeah, definitely. And if you do end up watching the game, I think it's on ESPN too. The colors are kind of kind of the same, so it might be confusing to see what jerseys they pull out. So, all
True.
right, I'll move on to my spread pick. I always like to check the spread lines and see if there's any difference. And one line that I was really interested in, and this brings me back to my hometown or my home state of Rhode Island, and that's Providence is at Texas tonight, and they're getting 8.5. And Providence has 3 losses on the year. 2 of them have come less than 3 points, and the other one was to Michigan, the number one team in the country, or number one or two. So I thought that at Texas, I know Texas is a pretty good team this year. They've rebounded, but Ed Cooley, the coach of Providence, always likes to keep the game close. I just thought that 8.5 was too much here.
Okay. I think that's fair. I've seen Providence a little bit. Obviously, they're like you said, they're kind of a blue collar team, and it comes from their coach. They play hard. You're not going to get a lazy effort out of them. I think for me, the issue there is going to be, can they attack Texas defense? I regard them as one of the better teams in the country on defense. They're a solid unit. Roach can score, of course, for them, but I don't really worry about that. It's more how effective will Providence really be? They got obviously David Duke's come on, and they have some players. 8.5 is pretty generous. I will give you that. It's just going to be a matter of as well as I do with college basketball. We saw last night Texas Tech. My God, they were in that game perfectly. Then they lose the foul game. You lose by 11. It can get dicey with that, but yeah, I think a pretty fair line for a road team that's solid.
Yeah, of course, betting the road team, as you know, is never good. Ed Cooley just seems to keep his guys in the game. As long as he doesn't pull what the Duquesne coach pulled, I think they got a chance to cover. That was absolutely crazy, man. I can't believe that he not only did they lose the game, but then they lost the spread cover. It was pathetic, to be honest.
Yeah, 6 free, giving 5.5, and they get double technical, and they make all 6 free throws. That is on the short list
of bad beats. That was a lot of fun. All right. So any other games for college basketball you want to touch on?
The one, and I don't even have a strong lead. I think we should just talk about before we get to college football is I just want to give a shout out. Not that I'm a Buffalo guy, but man, these Buffalo Bulls they are good, and they're going to Marquette tonight. I have a feeling this is where the undefeated streak ends. I'll be honest. They're coming off a win at Syracuse. They're a damn good team. Massenburg is phenomenal. This is a tough spot, though. Marquette is pretty good, and going on that road week after week, game after game, I think this is where Buffalo gets nipped.
Yeah, I mean it's always tough. I know that Bobby Hurley was the coach, and then he moved to Arizona, and he looks like he set Nate Oates up with a pretty good team, and he's done a really good job. It's always tough to bet against the the guys that are just hot and the teams that are hot, but it is a tough game. They had it. I think that was probably. Would you say that was their biggest win? In Madison that they had this year.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's we'll see. The thing about college basketball, obviously, it's before Christmas. This is it's a long season. These teams are not going to take on the shape that they do come tournament time. In my opinion, these are both clearly tournament teams in Buffalo and Marquette. So
definitely,
but it's a good early game.
Yeah, I would say they are. It is. It's not a neutral site, correct?
I believe it's in Marquette.
Yeah, it's at Marquette, and so that'll be a tough one. They do have a good win against Syracuse as well. I'm excited. I'm actually going to watch the game. Kind of a mid-major feel with Buffalo here. We've seen Wichita State and Gonzaga. Kind of bring these mid-majors up to relevance. So yeah, I like it. I hope Buffalo continues the streak. It's always good to see a Cinderella go, but. Again, yeah, I don't really have a take either way on it. It's tough for me to bet these teams that are so hot because you think the run's going to end, but then it just doesn't. So I'm going to stay away from it, but certainly watch it.
Fair enough. Yeah, and we got good morning chat. Yeah, I see some people in there. How goes it? Feel free as we get on, drop your takes in there, and we'll be talking about them. But yeah, I mean, so now I will be. We'll move on to bowl games, which is always fun.
Yeah, definitely.
We got a couple. We have one, I believe, kicking off right now from the Bahamas, which is just, I don't even want to talk about that garbage. But there's a couple tomorrow that I'm quickly going to plug. So I wrote it up, and if you haven't read my article, it's on the site. Feel free to check it out. These games were mentioned. But I got my Army Black Knights, which is right down the street from where I live. They're playing Houston. And the thing I like about the game, the spread, I got it early. It was at 3. It's up to 5.
5 now, yep.
Army doesn't really pass the ball. They're a triple option team. They just run it. That's like a lot of the academies. And Houston just can't stop the run. Ed Oliver's not playing. And it's just one of those things. I really think that Army just controls the game on the ground. And when they do that, it's just so hard to play catch up.
Yeah, especially when they, are controlling the pace of the game and such. And I did look at your article, and I got Army -3 at 170. So like you said, it's now the minus 105 or the minus 100 or even money is 5.5 now, which obviously the makers are taking into effect Oliver not playing. And then I think you also mentioned there's somebody else on the other side of the ball for Houston not playing.
That's right. Yeah. So their quarterback who's really dynamic, De'Aaron King, he's gone. He's hurt. So, it's a prolific offense, but obviously, as you know, all those offenses, you need the central guy. You need the quarterback to really command it. They're bringing in a freshman. He looked all right, but he's not King, that's for sure.
Yep.
So again, if they fall behind, Can they play catch up? Of course they can. But Army is one of those teams. If you can't stop them, you just can't stop them because they really do the same thing on every play.
So if Fisher was playing and the normal quarterback was playing for Houston, would it be a pick'em game or would they be favored?
It's interesting. So King went down pretty late in the year. If he was healthy the whole way, I think we would see Houston maybe in even a more prolific bowl game. And I think they would be the favorite if they had all their personnel. Oliver, he might be the number one pick. King is a dynamic player. But at the same time, it's a tough spot for them. This is the best Army team we've seen in a while. They handled Navy. And they just do what they do. They're well coached, they're disciplined, and like I said, I think it's a perfect matchup just when you look at what Houston really lacks in the run game.
All right, last question on this. How do you feel about Oliver not playing in the game? And he's the possibly number one pick. So
yeah, it's tough. It's hard to blame anyone where it's like, one freak play and your whole narrative can play. He's been great for them, and he's it's a fine line. I'm sure at this time of the year, as we all know, everyone's a little banged up. So it's like he has something. It's probably good to rest. Could he play? Of course he could, like most of these guys. But, it's hard to fault anyone when it's not my money that I could potentially lose.
Yeah, and we all know if we follow the sports, we all know about Willis McGahee in the bowl game. Now he had the insurance policy, of course, but anything can happen. So, all right, the next game, we'll stay on the Buffalo bandwagon since we just talked about the basketball.
Yeah, I like it.
That was your other one, and I noticed that when you wrote it was -2. It's come down to -1 now. Tell me about the Buffalo game.
Yeah, so I Buffalo, what a time to be alive.
Yeah, right.
Tyree Jackson, their quarterback, he is a monster. I think 6'6", big dude, can move, can throw. I think he's going to be a pro. Yep. They definitely have a pro receiver, Anthony Johnson, good player. And honestly, in a game like this, I just lean with those kind of things. They just have, the more prolific players on that side of the ball. Their defense, yeah, it's not great. The other thing against them, they're playing Troy, games in Mobile. So it's a pseudo home game. But honestly, I kept it pretty simple. I just think that Buffalo clearly has the more dynamic offense and clearly has the best player on the field. In Jackson, in a virtual pick'em, I'll just lean to that. They're going to be motivated. They blew the MAC championship. And it's just a spot that I'm willing to say they win this game.
Yeah, I would certainly tend to agree with you. All the points that you just hit on, having the best player on the field certainly helps in these bowl games. And then, like you said, kind of a de facto home game. And on that same note, I know you didn't write up about it, but when I saw that Louisiana Tech's got to go all the way out to Hawaii for the Hawaii Bowl, right? I'm pretty sure if I saw it correctly where it is, or is the Hawaii Bowl not in Hawaii?
You never know with these ridiculous names, but let me say, right here. Yeah, right in the heart of Honolulu. So
thank you. All right, I thought it's probably at Aloha Stadium. That's what I thought. Anyways, it's traveling all the way out there. I mean, I did it last year. It's a long time. I mean, it's a facto home game, like you said. If you had to pick, would you kind of lean that same way in the Hawaii Louisiana Tech game?
That's an interesting game. Louisiana Tech's a team I've been on early in this year. I thought they played well. They played some tough teams. They went to LSU and hung. But you're right. Being, Hawaii is a team. They struggle more on the mainland for obvious reasons.
Yep.
They're going to be at home, and they talk about a prolific offense. They got an up and down. They've had that for years. Obviously, the Colt Brennan back in the day style, but they're a good little team. So yeah, that's a tough game. One that I didn't write up because I think that line is pretty fair. They may get after it, and I'm more kind of apt to kind of stay away, a gut feel. I'm still going to go with Louisiana Tech, to be honest.
Yep.
But it's a tough one, I think, to really peg.
And it's a pick 'em, and like you said, the over-under is 61.5. At least that's what I'm looking at. So high-scoring game, kind of like you said. Fun to watch. I kind of like those games that are fun to watch. But yeah, if I had to lean one way, I just pick the home team in this regard, just because it's a long way to travel out there. But I talk about that narrative more in golf, the travel, than I do in football. So they've probably been there for a while.
No, I mean, Hawaii will have fans. They'll be up for the game. Yep. We did, before we move on, we had a good question from chat. And, as we've done this betting show, obviously there's a lot of people who are new to betting. I'm glad that Spence dropped the question. And he said, I'm new to betting. What is really when people talk about unit betting? And basically, obviously that's just, most people have a set amount that they bet, and say one unit is $100. So then if it's a 2-unit bet, it's $200. It's really just allocating how much you're looking to bet on a given game. Your unit amount is really up to you.
Yeah, exactly. I see that all over the place. Some guys a unit will be $10. Some guys a unit will be 1,000. So it's just the way people describe instead of saying hundreds or thousands or what have you. So
Exactly.
great question though.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got what else we got in chat here? This they're talking about massive wins in this game today. That's why I can't even mess around with this one today. What an ugly game with FIU and Toledo.
Oh,
Just
the Bahamas,
yeah.
48. It is now. I'm probably relatively close. You know, the Bahamas is not too. It's probably like 45-minute flight for me, to be honest. And it's hurricane force winds. We had to shut down our bridge here locally, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the game last night, which Mike was just saying that Marshall, what an easy play when we realized the USF quarterback
Wasn't playing.
The game was in Raymond James last night, and it looked nasty down by.
It's nasty down here.
I'm in New York, not much better up here, to be honest. It's just it's ugly all around. But anything else? Obviously, the marquee stuff that the people want to talk about. As much as I would love to degen about these college games.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move to NFL?
No, I think we can dive into NFL, and we got a two-day NFL weekend again, which is always fun. Though the two games on Saturday, man. Oh, geez, the Titans and Redskins. Let's just talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
Over under is 37.5. I think I saw. I mean, obviously Josh Johnson starting. Do you like any bet in this game? And if so, tell me a couple.
It's funny. It hurts me to say this. I feel grimy saying this. I kind of like the Redskins. I'll be honest. The Titans, they need this game. I understand that they're at home. I expect them to win. But I'll say we've seen time and time again with them. They're not immune to playing down to a team, to kind of sleepwalking and needing to rally. The Jets game comes to mind for me. And the Redskins, as bad, and they have no offense left. The line is in decimation. That defense is scrappy. If Josh Johnson doesn't turn the ball over and they can stop the run, which is going to be a tall task. Henry's a good player, obviously. I could see this game staying very low scoring. And when you're getting 10 points in a game that only has 30 points, it could be pretty lucrative, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, we saw Josh Johnson pretty much control the game. I mean, they took a win, against Jacksonville, and played pretty well for all intents and purposes. Obviously, when we switch over to the offensive side of the ball for Tennessee, Derrick Henry has been on absolute fire. Does that continue? Do we see Corey Davis come again? Do we see him show up ever?
So, yeah, I mean, I did a show last night. I did my Three Fellas show, and I was saying, Derrick Henry, obviously, he's going to get the volume, and I get that. But I don't think it's out of the realm to see him struggle relative, especially if we just jump to DFS for 1 second.
Yep.
He's going to be overly popular tomorrow. And he still is kind of a touchdown or bust-esque. He's a virtual zero in the passing game. And from just going back to betting, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. If they're running him, that's going to keep this clock moving. That game is going to fly by. I don't see it being too prolific in terms of aerial attacks.
So I got a good one then. In I know on the betting side, becoming more popular are these prop bets, and a lot of companies are popping up. One of the companies is Monkey Knife Fight. Have you gone on there and checked out their stuff yet?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, just go give them a check. It was the only place that I could find some prop bets, because I know those are growing in popularity and I like them. So they set Derrick Henry's line at 83.5 rushing yards. What do you think about that one?
Interesting. Is it lined, and is it minus 110 on both sides?
It's part of so the way that they do this is they package like 3 or 4 of these over-unders together, and you can either start with 2 or go all the way up to 4, and it increases your odds when you get all 4. So they packaged it with Adrian Peterson, 54.5 rushing yards. So you got to pick over-under on both of those.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, for me, Derrick Henry, I think that's the way I look at it. I think that's a pretty fair line, but at the same time, if he has 22 carries for say 80 something yards, I don't think that's outrageous. And if he doesn't fall in the end zone, that's probably all you're getting from that guy, and that's what I think is interesting. Game flow wise, obviously you would think that it would favor Henry over Deion Lewis, regardless of the fact that Henry's on quite a run here. But what do you think about him as a whole?
Yeah, well, it's sad to me because I traded him. like the last
Okay.
week of it. I was honestly, he was a throwaway because at that point, when we were getting up to the trading deadline in most fantasy leagues or season long, he was basically almost a throwaway. And now all of a sudden, he obviously is a Heisman winner, so he's got talent. And I don't know what's taken them so long. Their offensive line has been almost intact. I mean, I think they had one or two injuries I saw earlier in the season, but sometimes when you get that renewed sense, and now we're seeing with these dual workhorse, because Deion Lewis was really the workhorse or took a lot of the snaps in the beginning part of the season. Now we see Derrick Henry almost, I wouldn't say fresh legs, but fresher legs than probably you see Todd Gurley have or something like that. So yeah, I mean, is he an RB1 or 2 right now for me? No, I have him, in the flex spot for DFS purposes. Still, the price is still okay. He just doesn't have the pass catching ability out of the backfield that would make me auto roster him in most formats if we're switching DFS, or even on the betting side. I do kind of like that line if we do see the books come out with 83.5, which they tend to be pretty close to
Yep.
what I've seen on Monkey Knife Fight. I actually like that bet there. 83.5 rushing yards. Like you said, he's probably going to get 20 carries. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry over his last 2 games. So Washington, they're okay against the run. I think they're middle of the pack when I last looked. So it's an interesting bet. That's one when I see the line, if it's 85 yards, I think I'm going to go over here.
Okay. Yeah, see, that's a good one. I like this because if I had to bet that, I would probably roll the dice and go under, and hope that maybe I'm getting plus on my money there. Because I
Yep.
do think, when you do look at Derrick Henry objectively right now, he seems pretty locked in for massive carries, and even just by volume, he could get there even if he's somewhat ineffective. But Mike just said in chat, and I totally agree. This does kind of have a feel of it could be one of those like 10-3 kind of games. I wouldn't be stunned. If it's really ugly. Obviously, the Redskins, they're not going to be in any rush to get up and down, and the Titans kind of play methodical on the whole. They desperately need this game, though. This would be a disgraceful loss if that's how they get knocked out.
Yeah, it certainly would be, and I guess in a way, Washington is still alive as well.
It's
which
amazing.
is
I don't even think about that. It's true.
it's crazy. But yeah, Washington 18th against the run. So like we said, right in the middle of the pack there. I can definitely see this being a 17-10 game. I mean, the under at 37.5, that was the first thing we talked about when we started talking about this. And we're both like, holy crap, that's low. But in reality, it might not be.
No.
So if they do allow you to parlay a prop and a over-under bet, I know that Sportsbook does. I like the Derrick Henry over 83 rush yards for me, or 84 rush yards, and the under for this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very real, we were talking about narratives for DFS last night, and obviously there's a very, Derrick Henry, that Titans defense, they kind of just salt that game away with him, and it really drags the score down, and he's doing, the preliminary heavy lifting for the Titans. I could see that, no doubt, even though I am more apt to say that maybe he has a little come back to earth type of game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to happen a little bit last week, and it started off kind of like that, and all of a sudden broke out again. So,
yeah.
All right. Anything else on that game, or do you want to talk about the Chargers-Ravens for a minute?
No, let's go to that one. That's obviously a huge game.
Huge game, yeah.
So we'll see. It looks like Melvin Gordon, I believe, is in. Keenan Allen, questionable, but I would expect him to play.
Yep.
This is a big game for both of them. And then on the other side, I mean, I'll toss it right back to you. Do you think Lamar Jackson, because he's been good, but man, he's seen some easy teams. Do you think he can handle kind of the way he plays against this Chargers defense?
So Lamar Jackson, I think he's definitely a different player in a lot of respects as Vince Young, but he's actually very similar in a lot of respects too. So when I look at his upside, yeah, I think he can control the game against bad teams, and especially with a good defense. And the Ravens have come back on again this year. Their defense has been pretty good. Again, like you said, the talent that he's played over his starts hasn't been great. But what he does give is that extra dynamic. Obviously, he can throw the ball. He's not very good at it, and he's shown that he's not been very good at it. But he has controlled the game with his offense, and when you have a good defense, that's all. So I'm excited to see them come against the Chargers. Phillip Rivers, I think that he struggles. And Joey Bosa being back on the Chargers, that Derwin James has been an absolute all-star, and he's a rookie. So I don't think that Jackson. I think that Jackson sees his first real struggle in the NFL this week, and I don't see the Chargers thwarting them because of Baltimore's defense, but I think it's a 14-point game. I would take, the Chargers to cover at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense Bosa and Ingram on the outside. That's just a dynamic he hasn't seen, and he's incredibly athletic. It's not like he can't get away from those guys, but at the same time, some of those holes are going to close up a little faster. I also think there's a reasonable chance that he's forced to play a little more behind, and it's going to kind of funnel him to pass a little more. And if that happens, he could be exposed. 100% with you. Derwin James is an absolute monster. I mean, that guy's
everywhere.
He's just great. Florida State could really have used him along with a lot of other pieces this year, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm with you. This is kind of a game. I personally, I do this sometimes. I see the Chargers minus 4.5. I feel pretty damn confident that they win the game. I might look to take that money line minus 220 and roll it in with another game. Take a couple where I don't have to lay the points. We'll get to the Cowboys game. Them and the Cowboys, you can kind of get, maybe even plus money if you don't take the points on either. And I really just think Chargers ain't going to lose this game at home. They really need it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and we'll get into our parlays, but one of the ones that I liked a lot from our pre-notes was the Chargers and the Cowboys, which gets you, let me just get you. It's pretty close to even money. I think it might even be plus.
There we go.
Like you said, yeah. We got the Chargers and we got the Cowboys. Yeah, it's actually minus 100, so it's almost a pick 'em. But at that point, yeah, you got Dallas playing a Tampa Bay team that's got nothing to play for, and the Chargers that has the number 1 overall seed to play for at this point. And I think this is a perfect segue, unless you want to touch anything about the Chargers, that I actually think one of my favorite games of the weekend is Kansas City at Seattle. Really excited to watch it. I think that the Chargers end up getting the number 1 seed because I do think Seattle pulls out the win. Disappointed that they couldn't go into San Francisco and Russell Wilson couldn't come through there. But I really think that Kareem Hunt not being on the Kansas City Chiefs is going to show this week. Again, I think it showed last week against the Chargers, not being able to put them away. And I think we're going to see it again this week.
Interesting. That's a big game, obviously. Seattle, that was one. NFL, it is what it is. But I'm not going to, because I want to talk about this game. The Niners, though, they're playing good for a team that has nothing to play
really
for.
Good.
They really are fighting. And that was a tough spot for Seattle. Now they come home. They're in the driver's seat because they beat all these teams in Carolina. Needs to be liquidated, obviously. They're just disgraceful. But this is a big one. I'm interested. So do you think that it will be because kind of Kansas City's offense is kept in check, or do you think that running game on Seattle's side is really able to control that?
Yeah, I think that no one's really going to stop Mahomes all game. It's I look at it, and he's just a first-year quarterback, second year in the league, I know, but I look at it as when Brady was in his best, and I'm from Rhode Island, so I'm a Patriots fan, and when Brady was his best in 2004, 2005, it didn't matter what defense they were going up against, or if they were going up against a team that ran, they were going to score points. What I like, though, is that Seattle's offense has been able to also score points recently, albeit, a lot through the run game and through Russell Wilson. But I think that they're able to outscore them enough, and I think that the fans, as big of a game as it is, are going to get in the game a lot, and I think that it will affect Mahomes enough to the point where Wilson comes out on top, and it looks like I'm pretty sure they're getting 2.5, which
that's right.
I would probably take a buy of a point here just in case they lose on that, a Butker field goal at the end. Actually, you'd need 1.5 points at that point. So that's probably what I'd say to do if you don't think Seattle's going to win. I'd say maybe buy 1.5 if books offer that. But I do think that it's a close game, but a relatively high scoring game as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at plus 2.5. If it was me, what I would do, I'd probably wait it out, because if it drops to 2 or even 1.5, what are you really losing? If it can go to 3 and then you can hit it there, obviously that could be a key 0.5 point for the Seahawks. You could end up getting a push if the game doesn't go great, and say the Chiefs do win it with a late field goal.
Yep.
And that's going to be interesting. Obviously, even though Mahomes has been fantastic, I do think these are both two teams that really, like the Saints as well. Arrowhead is a huge place. The Superdome is a huge place. Seattle is. These teams are all much better at home. That is not a great spot for the Chiefs. I really though, and we talk about this. We'll be talking a lot of golf over our time here. There are
Yep.
just certain guys and certain teams where you just don't have a pulse on them, and the Chiefs for me are that team. I really just don't have the right pulse on them. I have a tough time gauging really where they're at and how they're going to play week to week, which makes it tricky.
Yeah, definitely. And last week, watching the Chargers game, I'm like, okay, the Chiefs 28-14, put them away, show us that you're the best team in football, and they couldn't do it. And they were at home too. So, right? Were they at home? I think they were at home. I don't know why my memory is faulting me there, but I'm pretty
That
sure.
Thursday feels like months ago, so I
It
don't.
does. It does. But it just goes to my point that I think that they're struggling a little bit to put the games away. Now, again, they're 11-3, but they've lost to three teams that they're gonna have to probably play in the playoffs. So makes me a little nervous. I do like Seattle at home as well. So I'll move on to one of my next games, my favorite over under of the week. That I picked, and it's the Browns Bengals. I'm looking at the under 46. Tyler Boyd's not playing, or it looks like he's not going to play. Andy Dalton obviously on IR. We've got Jeff Driscoll. They've scored 20 points against the Browns 4 weeks ago, then 10, and then 21. They did 30 against the Raiders last week, but the Raiders are the worst team in football. So the Browns have something to play for, and I think this game could be something like 28-10, something like that. And the over-under is 46. So that one really jumped out at me. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, Cincinnati's a team. Obviously, I'm with you. I like them. I bet them last week, and that was a different scenario. That was more about the Raiders and the Bengals being at home.
Yep.
They're in Cleveland here. I think it's really going to depend on how much the Browns, honestly, what they do with this game, because I do think they can methodically put them away if it gets out, and the Browns are moving it with these. I could see a scenario where this does creep over if the Bengals are almost forced to go into pseudo garbage time early. But if they stay in it, I think they try to lean on Mixon. That's what I certainly would do, and that will almost within the game kind of correlate. The Bengals try to run it, establish that run. On the other side, you've got Chubb, Baker, and them. It doesn't seem like they want to really necessarily get out there and do it. They'd rather have a more balanced look. That's really when they're at their best. So I see it there. Yeah, my book. You're getting a sharp line there. Mine's dropping. It's at 45. So
yeah, I just saw another one, as you said, that show 43.5, which obviously, yeah, I'm on Sportsbook, candidly. And there's, let's see if they've changed it now too, because that wouldn't surprise me at this point. Nope, they're still at 46. So definitely an interesting line there. And something to take a look at. I just saw another one, like I said, at 43.5. So the weather, one more note, the weather probably looks to be the worst. And when I say the worst, it's going to be the coldest. It'll be about 35, wind's going to be about 15 miles an hour. So just a couple of things to kind of put on there. I know that, we always like to look at all the elements when we're betting the over under. So, and then now I'll turn it over to your favorite over under of the week. I saw we chatted a little bit about it before, but tell me about the Texans Eagles and what you're thinking.
Yeah, so this is a weird game. Obviously the Texans, they're like an afterthought, even though they're in the thick of it. It's like
they're in the thick of it for a number one seed at this point.
Like it's just the Texans, and then you have the Eagles, who maybe they will get in. It seems insane to think that they could, but obviously that was a huge win last week. It's a gettable game. It's not the best spot, but it's a virtual pick 'em. We got the Eagles at home, and the over under I'm seeing is 46 there.
Yep.
This just seems like a knockdown, drag out fight with two fronts that are really good. I know the Eagles secondary is absolutely wasted and they're just gone, but they still have Fletcher Cox and the gang up the middle. And then on the other side, I don't really need to talk about JJ Watt and Merciless and Clowney against Foles, who he does this thing. I give him credit, but I do think one of the things they lose is kind of a more dynamic. Not that Wentz was super explosive lately, but I really just have a feeling that both of these teams fall into a kind of methodical offense where they're chipping away. Stalling in the red zone seems, probable. Field goals certainly help your unders. And as we both, you just cited this for your game, it's cold. This is December. These games outside, obviously, you've got wind, you've got weather. I'm not saying it's going to be snowing. I haven't even checked the weather, but it's still not what we see when we get these teams. You got Steelers Saints in the dome. Obviously, that sets the table for monster scoring. I feel like this one, in a game that both teams really should be engaged, can kind of, go. I wouldn't be surprised to see this, in the 21-17 kind of range where points come at a premium and both teams play somewhat conservative.
Yeah, and when I look at the game, there's only really one big play guy, and when I say that, Lamar Miller has 2 95-yard touchdowns, but it's DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, is the only big play guy. Alshon Jeffrey emerged last week, and that doesn't surprise me with Nick Foles coming back. So it's interesting. Nick Foles obviously got Philly, huge win last time they were out. Their defense played really good, and everyone was saying, hey, defense, the Eagles secondary, they're trash. They're trash. Well, yeah, but if you put pressure on the quarterback, you only have to hold them in coverage for 2 or 3 seconds if the guys are getting to him. So definitely an interesting game. I definitely like that. The only way that I could see it going over is a big play, is a big play early where it's going to force one team to change their methodical look and maybe pass a little bit more.
Yeah.
But one more note on those. If you parlay both of the ones we just picked, it's a plus 260. So that's not a bad range for those 2 games that and that's also with buying 2 points on the Cincinnati Cleveland. I was wrong. It's a 44 line. My thing had to buy 2 points on there. So that's why it's 46. Yeah.
Obviously when we're talking about this, everyone's depending on where you are and what, it's important to line chop if you can.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some options, it adds up over time. Believe me, a half point here, a point there, certainly can make the difference. Before we jump in anything else, just a little housekeeping. As everybody knows, we're doing our Christmas daily giveaway every day. I say the same thing. Yep. So you should know by now if you're watching these shows, but all you got to do, like the video, subscribe, and then when it ends, not in the chat right now, comment something on the bottom. It can be whatever you want. What I would suggest, because we're about to get into it, is the upset of the week in the NFL, or your live dog of the week. So who do you think can kind of maybe make some noise? And if you do that, you're eligible for the daily drawing, which is today, obviously. And it's a free month of the site, all access. So why not? It's a free roll. Do it. You should be liking the videos anyway, because it does do us more than you would think. Gives us a bunch of help. But so, yeah, let's do that. Perfect segue to, do you have a team that maybe, and chat, we want to hear from you too. Who's your live dog of the week? Do you have a team? I know you mentioned the Seahawks, which is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the upset that you kind of see maybe creeping in there?
Yeah, I think that's probably my best bet on one. The only other one that I looked at, and it was only if Odell played, was the Giants maybe giving the Colts a game. But that's really only if Odell plays. We saw Saquon Barkley take such a step back last week without Odell, whereas the previous week he really stepped it up. So I think team kind of realized how to stop Saquon without Odell. So that was the other one that I looked at. But really, it's Seattle is my pick.
Okay. I'm going to go with a somewhat homer pick. I like the Jets at home. They're +3. The Packers obviously have nothing to play for. I'm certainly surprised. We've seen Cam. I mean, he can't throw. They're rolling Rodgers out there, which I get it. But at the same time, the Packers are just one of the teams on my short list of teams that just want to get to the offseason. It hasn't gone the way they want it. The Jets are more inclined. They've got young guys out there. Darnold's growing. Elijah McGuire, I think, is their best back. I know Crowell's maybe a little more can handle the workload, but McGuire is going to be the guy you see out there time and time again. They're at home, and they're playing better. They really are. They gave the Texans all they could handle on Saturday. And I think at home, they're getting 3 points. That's a spot I really do think they win a game that ultimately is meaningless. Mm-hmm. But for the Jets, they come in as the more motivated team, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do we even know is Rodgers is going to play?
I think that's the latest that I saw is they are not shutting him down. He's got a groin issue. He's banged up, obviously, but yeah. I think he is playing. And so, him and Devontae Adams, they could cause serious problems. There's no doubt, but it's still a situation like I said, the Jets are a scrappy team right now. They've got young guys. They're still playing. They're not great, but at home, I think you can look to them as a possible upset pick of the week.
Yeah, I like that. And we know that if, let's say, Rodgers does get anywhere hurt or limps, they're just going to pull him because it's a meaningless
Absolutely.
game now. And that's even if he does play. So I definitely like that line. One other thing on that game that I also do like, Green Bay is one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. And again, I expect the lines when the player props come out to be relatively similar to what I'm seeing over on Monkey Knife Fight. Elijah McGuire, 58.5 rushing yards or more. Kind of seems like from your take there that if that's the line, that might be one to look at.
I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. He's a dynamic player. So if we'll see what props pop up, a total yards prop for him would be
Hmm.
nice just because he's very capable as a pass catcher.
Sure. Yep.
But if the Jets do get out in front, and I think they will, they're going to have to give him the ball because they don't have Crowell.
Nope.
The guy behind him is that cannon guy. He's not really a every down back.
He's a scat back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean he's very explosive. Only takes one. And yeah, this is like I said. I cited the Niners before. They're at the top of the list of a team that has nothing to play for. But man, look at them right now. You don't want to play the Niners. The Bears they were the almost team. I couldn't pull the trigger, but I think that's not the best spot for the Bears, to be honest. Going into San Francisco against that scrappy Niners team.
Yeah, definitely. And just to finish up on the Jets, I'm going to say I know we don't try to agree everything, but the Jets here, they are playing better. They're at home in Green Bay, just has absolutely nothing to play for. So agree there. Moving on, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, we know he's an offensive genius, and we know it would take time. Jimmy Garoppolo going down week 2, it's sad, but they've stuck in it. They've played hard in almost every single game. I don't think they've even gotten blown out really in any games, except for the one where Nick Mullins, they had 900 yards of offense and they lost by 25.
That was in Seattle, yeah.
In Seattle, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, tons of offense, but again, so it is. And Kyle Shanahan has his team motivated to play. So it's a little bit maybe of a letdown spot. If nothing else, a very tough game.
Yeah, no, we had Chad actually chimed in. That was Mike's pick in chat. I think it's a good one for the Niners. We got Jordan picked the Raiders, which is a bold call. That's Monday night.
Yeah, that's against the Broncos. Yeah, that's a bold call.
Broncos, okay. The Raiders are another team. I don't even pretend to know what they're doing at any point. Not at this point. It's just, but this is the time of the year. You see it in DFS. You see it in betting. It's tough because you don't know what the internal conversations with some of these teams are. Are we planning for next year? Are we going to go out there and really try to win these games? Even in the bowl game, same concept. Like where are these teams' heads at? So you try to pick your spots here and there, and the games where you got two defined teams with defined roles, I think are the best spots to kind of attack if you know where they're at.
Yeah, definitely. And in Chicago, the Chicago San Fran game, I mean, I do like both coaches. Both coaches have a really good offensive mind. So should be a fun game to watch. But yeah, I mean, does San Francisco say, okay, you know what? We've shown up in every game, but now we need to play for our draft pick position and tank. So yeah, I agree. It's just a little nerve wracking, and also in DFS too, just nerve wracking to know what players are going to end up getting the reps for teams that don't matter anymore. So it's difficult, but if you can find the edge, stick with it. That's for sure.
No, absolutely. We got to touch. I know we've talked about some games, and this is one. It's the biggest, on the short list of biggest games. I just wanted to get your thoughts. We got late. I think it's the 4:00 slot. We got Steelers. We got Saints in the dome down there. The Saints can lock up home field, which that's going to be tough for the NFC if that's what has to happen to get to the Super Bowl, that you got to go through New Orleans. On the other side, the Steelers, that was a big win against your boys last week. They need another one, though.
Yeah, they do.
Any way they can go in there and get that win?
Yeah, defense showed up. I mean, Tom Brady looked terrible last week. But the defense played motivated. Now they tend to play motivated in big games at home late in the season. So that's the only thing that makes me nervous is now they're going down to New Orleans. It's a fast track. They're not going to have the 35-degree weather. They're not going to have the terrible towels. So yeah, the only way I can see them coming in is if they can outscore. And New Orleans has not scored that many points recently. That they haven't been high powered, so to speak.
Mhm.
In their last couple of games, 12 against the Panthers, 28 against the Bucks, 10 against the Cowboys. So their last 3 games, the offensive kind of petering. Drew Brees has played okay, but it seems like the lack of wide receiver depth may be creeping in a little bit. So if that continues, and let's say Lattimore locks up Antonio Brown, if Juju goes off all day, I can see, as long as there's not a locker room or X-ray malfunction and Ben
Very
Roethlisberger
young.
sits out half the game, I think I actually can see the Pittsburgh Steelers keeping in this game, especially if the Saints offense is struggling a little bit, which I think they are.
Okay, no, I like that because I'm more another game where I see the Saints. They're a pseudo touchdown favorite. That's one of the teams that we were talking about before. The Chargers, for me, the Cowboys is the obvious one. Saints is another one. I think they win the game. I feel pretty good about that. Not sure I want to lay the points. They're just such a different animal, and this is going to be, because you're right. The Saints defense has low key been carrying them.
Yep. Yep.
I think this is a spot where, not that it's an end all be all, the Saints offense needs to show up in this game. This is a good spot for them. They should play well in the dome. They got to get Kamara back to being Kamara. He looked all right against
Okay.
Carolina, but you're right. We've seen lately, I don't want to say it's to a fault, but to me, kind of the Saints have been leaning on these other guys a little too much, where it's like, you've got Michael Thomas, you've got Kamara, let them go. Get them back to what they were doing early in the year instead of trying to be a little too tricky, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Taysom Hill packages have come out a little bit more than I think I would have liked to see them, just because Kamara is such a dynamic player and the touches have been down for him pretty drastically. Obviously, if you look at his game log over the first 3 games of the season when Ingram wasn't there, he was dominating and the Saints were dominating. So now, with that being said, I again like your Elijah McGuire take about doing a total yards prop bet, and same with Kamara. One though that I'm seeing about Kamara, and just because I like Alvin, 58.5 rushing yards. Is that something you just stay away from with Kamara because he splits the reps with Ingram on rushing, or do you play for the big play?
Yeah, it's tough because you kind of just touched upon it. It's tough with a guy like Kamara because you can get it right on a macro level and still lose your prop, because it's like, oh, he has 150 yards of receiving. Those guys are such dual threats that it's a little tricky. All in all, obviously, if you have a confident game script. But I do look when I know a guy is live for 6, 7, 8 catches, I try to look to the total yards kind of prop, just because of course, the line is going to be higher. That's a given. But I still think I'd rather say, you know what, if Kamara breaks one, I'm benefiting regardless. It's not a run, it's not a pass.
Yep, absolutely. And we've seen him last week, even in the game, he was probably one tackle away from having 2 more touchdowns. He was one-on-one with a guy twice, I think, and he got him both times. So definitely could be a breakout game for Kamara. Check definitely the total yards. I like the Saints. Like you, I'm not going to go +6. I'm not betting that spread. I think Roethlisberger can keep it close.
Mm-hmm.
I think their offense, maybe the running backs don't matter, Crowder. I know there are some out there. Maybe with the Steelers, it really could be true, as we've seen James Connors take the role. However, I will say that I think if they had Lev Bell, they'd be in the driver's seat for the number 1 overall seed. I really think that they would have put at least 2 more games away.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think we're going to see? Jalen Samuels really filled in nicely. No fumbles last 2 games. You think they're going to give him a little bit more of the ball, or is it going to go right back to Connor?
It'll depend. Obviously, I don't think we know exactly where Connor is at. I think he plays. I'm with you. But will they? I think they do work in Samuels. He's the kind of guy in college. He was kind of a gadget. He played tight end. He played fullback. He was in the backfield catching balls. It's funny, in a way, he almost fits better with Lev Bell than Connor. Obviously, Connor's immensely talented, but Jalen Samuels is a natural pass catcher. He's a natural guy for that Steelers offense. So I wouldn't be stunned to see them. I think I'll say this: I do like the Saints in this game, but if the Steelers are going to hang in there, I think they need to get creative in the backfield. Maybe get them both out there. Some different formations. Maybe try to split somebody out. Put some aggression, into the Saints defense, because you got Juju, you got AB. James Washington, he did show some life. That was a
He
great
did.
catch last week.
Yep.
They need more than, the usual threats, I think, to keep up with the Saints offense in the dome.
Yeah, and I will say the splits at the New Orleans Saints in the Dome is pretty known that they're significantly better than when they're on the road. There's no doubt about that. All right, so we'll move on to just the last game, and we touched on a little bit. I heard you say that Jordan's pick of the dog pick of the week is the Oakland Raiders.
There we go.
I actually got the Denver Broncos D starting in a final for a season long. Where are you going with this game?
Man, the Broncos are just a team. They're all over the map. It's tough to trust Case Keenum. Lindsey crashed back there. They were a Saturday game, so them and the Browns mucking it up. But I have trouble even at home. I get it. I just don't want to go to the Raiders. They've shown some fight here. They gave Kansas City all they could handle. They beat the Steelers there, and they do get a boost. Monday night in Oakland, that'll be an electric place, even as bad as they are. But I do think that the Broncos kind of find a way to win that game. The receiving core is banged up, but they've got Sutton. These other guys aren't terrible when you look at Hamilton, Tim Patrick.
Yep.
I think they can do enough. And then obviously, if you're the Broncos, if you can get out ahead and force Carr to drop back, Von Miller and the gang, that's the strength of that defense. The key is going to be if Doug Martin and them can establish the run, that could be a problem for the Broncos.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually surprised that Oakland wants to win any games, but it looks like they got the number one pick kind of locked up, or at least that. So yeah, they have shown a little bit more fight. I just don't. This could be the last Monday night game in Oakland too, right? For at least a while.
Yeah,
if they don't get one next year, they're moving to Vegas in 2020. So maybe there is just a little bit of. I see what Jordan's saying. I'm kind of hoping for the Denver Broncos defense to score a touchdown or two for me, but no real feelings. It's a total meaningless game for both teams. So I'm kind of staying away from it for the most part. Over under 43.5 kind of seems high, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's one of those games. Honestly, for me, it's a wide range of outcomes on both the over under and the game. Like I do think, and this isn't great analysis, I could see it being up and down, and I could see it being ugly. I could see the Raiders winning the game. I think the Broncos are going to win. It's just one where I'll just go back to what I was just saying. I like to try to late in the season bet games where I have a decent feel of what the teams are doing. I couldn't be more confused about where either of these teams are at on a macro level.
Definitely, I'm totally there. I'm totally there with you.
But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good, just to wrap up NFL, and then we're going to do one quick thing and get out of here. Not a bad week. I'm excited to see. There's some quote unquote elimination games this week. We'll see who survives. The Titans and the Colts, they play in week 17. I would kind of like them both to get through.
Win, yes.
And see what we can muster up for the last week. Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap up here?
Nope. Other than I don't know who's gonna be catching the balls for the Patriots. Now Josh Gordon's gone, so I'm a little nervous about that. Just gonna bring my homer sense in, but we should be able to win and get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you have two okay games.
Yeah, we got two easy games, so I guess we'll be all right.
Stay. Obviously, the key for them, they got to get the two. Get that bye. Playing 3 straight could be.
So here's actually that's one thing I had to know. I actually want to bring up my a theory is that I hope they don't get the 2 seed because they're playing so bad right now. I think that they need 3 games to be able to beat a Chargers or a Chiefs at this time. I know that's a weird thing to say because obviously you want the rest, but the Patriots are actually healthy. Nobody's really that banged up at this point. We just got Rex Burkhead back. So anyways, I'm off my soapbox on the Patriots. I'm a little nervous about this weekend. I know it's Buffalo, but hey, look at the Buffalo college team. So you never know.
You don't have to tell me. We'll get into, this is the first show, so I didn't need to unleash I love Josh Allen. I'm the biggest Josh Allen fan. Okay. The only possible Josh Allen fan. But yeah, if it was in Buffalo, we saw in that game. They played them pretty tough. They did as good as they could do, and they couldn't hang on. It's just tough in Foxborough. They're just deadly up there. I know we're in the off season. We're both love the golf, but it's off season. Do you have any thoughts before we're gonna have plenty of time to delve into Sony Opens right around the corner? Anything stand out for you before we get out of here, just on a golf level?
Yeah, so of course we us two couldn't do a show without talking at least for a
Yeah.
minute about golf. I'm normally chasing Ben on Sundays at the DFS golf leaderboard. We've had a couple times where we've come 1-2, so hopefully we'll do that again this year a lot. But I'm excited for the year now that golf is really in such a great spot again with Tiger Woods being back. So one of the things that I like to do early is I actually like to check out the major line. So since this is a betting show, I wanted to just pass along my favorite numbers so far. Crazy that Jordan Spieth is still the favorite. You guys will learn if you don't already know. As Ben is Josh Allen's biggest truther, I am the biggest Jordan Spieth truther on the market. I didn't have a good year last year, as one can imagine. But I do believe Bryson DeChambeau's number at Augusta is really good right now. I got him at 33-1. He's come all the way down to, I think, 25-1. But as an amateur, he almost won it. He was in the last two groups on Sunday, and he's just playing such good golf. And obviously, we're 4 months away. But take that name into consideration if you're looking to place a Masters bet.
Like, yeah, obviously, if you can, we're going to be talking a ton about golf, but obviously, if you can get a number now and if he plays well leading up, that you're going to be way ahead of the field in terms of, one win early in the year. And the market, I think, overreacts, but,
Yep.
those numbers are going to fly down for a lot of guys. And Bryson, I was not that I wasn't a fan, but man, is he impressive. He's just great.
He's just
You know,
good now. Yep.
he's ready. He's a big stage, doesn't intimidate him. I think the game sets up well for Augusta. We'll have plenty of time
To
to
digest that.
But yeah, this was fun, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely,
We will absolutely have more. If you're not sick of me already, a couple more hours, I'll be on again from A to B. We'll be doing main slate breakdown NFL, me and Andrew Barron. But this was the Awesemo Betting Show. Thanks for stopping by. Any questions, you can find, obviously both of us on Twitter. Hit me up in the Slack. You can get access to us if you need to talk to us. Good luck. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.